an introduction to social media, which we're very proud to be delivering on behalf of the Queensland Government. My name is Yvette Adams. That's a picture of what I look like. I know you can't see me right now. So this webinar, basically we show slides, we share information, but we will be getting you to interact. Now, some of you may well have joined previous Queensland Government webinars, and we're very proud to be back delivering them after a short break. A little bit of background on me for those of you who haven't enjoyed a presentation before that we've delivered. I'm a multi-award winning business owner, so I've started 5 different businesses, all very different kinds of businesses, and I hope that that experience in business, which I started at a young age, my first business was when I was 17, is helpful to you. So I'm not just telling you this is stuff you should do, I'm telling you based on experience in being in business myself, and definitely utilising social media in a big way ever since it's been available. Right now, my key focus is as the founder, owner and franchisor of the Creative Collective. So we're a creative agency based in Maroochydore, Queensland, but servicing clients all over Australia. And I've also got a new online startup, awardshub.com, which you're welcome to check out if you're interested in entering business awards for your business. I like pointing out to people that I'm a mother of 2, so I do know what the juggle of being a parent in business is like. And I've been on social networks since 2007, first with LinkedIn, and in 2008 I joined Twitter, Facebook and YouTube. So I've had a few years of playing around with this stuff, and over time that has built quite a sizable community. Our company are very proud to promote the fact that we have a combined social network of 70,000 people. So unlike some other people out there that claim to be experts, we like to rest on our laurels and say, you know, demonstrate to us what you're actually doing in that space if you're going to claim to be an expert, and that's something both myself and the company and all the trainers will introduce you to over the webinar series are very big on indeed. I'd like to point out at this point as well that if you're into Twitter, maybe already, and maybe come on to get a few more tips, we'd love you to follow the Queensland Government's dedicated Twitter channel, which is @businessqld.gov. And there's also a hashtag which we'd love you to use. Hashtags, as you'll learn in future lessons, aggregate information, and will be a way for them to track how many were on the webinar. Feel free to give feedback, make comments using that hashtag, and they'll be able to identify that you were on this very webinar today. Now, before we go on, I just want to make sure you're familiar with this technology and feel quite comfortable to proceed in case it is your first time, and if it is, welcome. Don't be afraid. Nothing scary about webinars. Now, you should be able to see a red arrow, and if you can't see an expanded menu, I want you to click on that red arrow, which will expand the menu. From there, you'll note there is a little hand, and you can click on that hand and show me, indicate a yes, because I will be asking for yes or no questions, and or leave it down if it's a no. So right now, I'd like you to locate that hand and raise it for me to show me that you understand where to locate that, and you can raise your hand if I ask you a question. Fantastic. I see a sea of hands. That's what we want. Now, the other technology, or part of the function of this technology, I should say, that is available to you today is text chat. So just like you can text chat on Skype or Facebook or MSN, we'd love you to chat with us. Let us know if you have a light bulb moment. Share your experiences. I will be asking you to share those. So get your fingers at the keyboard. It's not just a one-way listening. I'd really like you to interact because you'll get the most out of today if you do that. So if you'd like to drop me a little line and say hi, or give me a smiley face, tell me how you're feeling, how your day's been, whatever you'd like to say, feel free to send on through some text chat messages now. Now, finally, I have got Anthony Viner online today. He's from our office, and he's our amazing technical support guy. He's very knowledgeable in social media too. He's on hand to answer any questions you may have. I'll be busy presenting, so if you have a question, direct it to Anthony, and he will do his best to answer and help you out with any technical issues. All right, let's get into what I've got in store for you today. This is what we'll cover. We're looking basically at the social media landscape. So we are presuming if you're getting onto the session, you're thinking about starting up with social media, or you have started up with social media, but you're still sort of finding your feet, or maybe you're even quite established, but you're just getting on to see if you can pick up some golden gems of information. And if you fit into any of those categories or even others, I think you'll be really pleased with what we have to share today. Now, we really want you to get thinking today about your social media strategy and policy, and that's why we're kicking this off before we launch into Facebook for Beginners, Facebook Advanced in the future weeks, because it's very important you think about this stuff before you actually get involved in those networks. You'll find you'll get a lot better results. Time and time again, we meet business owners and they say, I tried social media, it didn't work. But the fact is they've often just thrown it up and really didn't have a strategy or any policies in place. Similarly, if they experience problems, it's often because they haven't had a policy around that, and that's where an issue arises. We will talk you through getting started if you are keen on really starting from the start. And we also talk about monitoring and measuring, because that's really important. If you are going to commit time, and the fact is social media does take time and you're all busy business owners and time is valuable, we want to make sure that you are actually getting results and that we give you some ideas on how you can actually monitor what's working and what's not. I'll let you know that there is an opportunity to ask questions at the end via text chat, but you are welcome to interact via text chat as well. So I hope that suits everyone. Who thinks that looks like a good lineup and they're very keen to learn about that stuff? Raise your hands. Fabulous, lots of hands up again. Cool. Okay, so this landscape. Now, I realise the writing is quite small on this diagram, but I wanted to use it because it's a pretty well-respected diagram in the world of social media. There's a guy called Brian Solis, and he is, I guess, one of the people that people in social media look to. He developed this, what he calls the conversation prism, a while ago, and it's since been developed, and as new social networks have come online. But if you, I guess my point here is, if you think social media is Facebook or social media is LinkedIn or one of those big social networks that you hear about a lot, I wanted to make the point right up front that social media is a whole lot more than that. Social media breaks off into different segments, as you can maybe see on here. Social media can be microblogging, which is Twitter. It can be related to events and document creation. It's about being social online. So some of these little logos you might recognize, some of them you may not, but they actually all fall under the umbrella of social media. If you'd like to see that in a bigger view, you can see the reference there, the conversation prism. So feel free to go over and have a look at that. Now, having said that, we will focus on the big four today, which we deem to be LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. So let's start exploring those a little now. The surprising thing to a lot of people, I tell, is that LinkedIn was actually the first social media network to market. So a lot of people thought Facebook was the early one, but it was in fact LinkedIn. In fact, I believe today they're celebrating their 10-year birthday. So if you would like to send them a birthday wish, you feel free to go looking online. There's plenty of people doing that at the moment. Now, LinkedIn, for those of you who don't know what it is a professional network. So if your market is business to business, and we'll go into this more in a moment, that is a good one for you to be aware of. So at this point, I'd like to ask you to raise your hand if you are on LinkedIn with a profile. Who's already established on LinkedIn, giving it a go? You can raise your hands. Okay, I see lots of you are. A point also on the hands would be great if you could put them down, or Anthony can always as well. Okay. Right, we'll go into LinkedIn more in a moment, but that's a quick overview. Now, on to Facebook. So that emerged in 2004. It came out of Harvard University. If you'd like to really get to know Facebook, our next 2 weeks are webinars on those topics with our amazing social media specialist, Zoe Wyatt, who's very experienced with Facebook and is constantly researching and undertaking professional development to keep up with the constant changes. She saves you having to do that. She'll bring you all the latest and greatest in those sessions. So next week it's Intro to Beginners Facebook, and the week after Advanced. And even if you're quite experienced with Facebook, maybe you've had a profile a while and you have, you're doing a few things on it, I encourage you to get on the beginner session, because often we meet people, they think they're advanced, but they're actually not. They don't have some of the basic foundations right. And it certainly wouldn't hurt to make sure that that's the case for you. All right, I'd like to know at this point, through a show of hands, who's on Facebook, who has a profile already. That's probably one of the most common social networks, as you'll see in the stats in a moment, so I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of you are. Yeah, looks like a huge amount of you are. I'd say almost all of you. Crazy. Okay, so Facebook is, of course, a social network, tends to be for business to consumer. So if your business is targeting consumers, it's a great place to go and find them on Facebook. And there's certainly the masses on there, as you will discover in future pages. Now, next up, YouTube. 2005, it got purchased by Google. Did you know Google owns YouTube in 2008? It is the second largest search engine in the world. And certainly with the emergence of mobile, more and more people are consuming video at an incredible rate, and a lot of them are doing it on mobiles. So if you have video content, or you could create video content that could be consumed by the masses, YouTube is certainly a network that you might like to focus on. Now finally, in the big four, we've got good old Twitter. I'd say it's probably the least understood social network. Actually, I'll just backtrack a step. Who's on YouTube? Could you raise your hands if you have a channel? You're not just using YouTube, but you actually have an established channel on YouTube where you do actively promote your business. Okay, there's a few of you, more than I thought probably. Cool, good to see. And as I was saying, on Twitter, been around since 2006. It's essentially a text message online, if that helps you get your head around what is it. You only have 140 characters, but it's amazing what you can actually achieve with that. I love the fact it's forced people's communication to become more concise, and hashtags, if you hadn't noticed, are sort of becoming part of conversation. Instagram uses hashtags as well, and hashtags aggregate information on a topic. So as we're using the hashtag QLDBiz today, as I said, the guys back at head office can search who used that hashtag today and see what impact that we've had from that webinar and telling you to use it. So Twitter's certainly an important social network. It also has large numbers of users, but probably the least understood, but don't underestimate it is my message. Right, next up, oh, I didn't ask you again, who's on Twitter, guys? I'd love to see a show of hands on that. And who is going to send a message out on to the Business QLD Gov network? That would be a great thing if you could do that for us. They love interaction. Fabulous. All right, next up, there are some up-and-coming social networks which we'd like to highlight to you and make you aware of. Some of you might already be using these. So Pinterest, who has a Pinterest profile? That's been going since 2010, as you can see. Wow, looks like lots of you have Pinterest too. You guys really intro people? I'm presuming you're just trying to get some more tips. And do you all know too that they introduced business pages in 2012? So end of last year, suddenly things got interesting for business. Now what Pinterest is, in case you didn't know, and it's not Pinterest as some people say, it's Pinterest, is it's a way of sharing images, and it's a way of pinning and linking back to direct websites. So let's say you've got a product range, you sell stuff online, you could be pinning the images that feature on your website to your Pinterest board, and let's say someone's searching and using Pinterest, and let me tell you, people do, they would click on this beautiful dress, let's say, and they'll come straight on through to your website. Result, you didn't pay anything, they're on your site now evaluating whether they want to purchase that site. We as a company use Pinterest in lots of different business ways. I've actually written a blog post on that recently, which feel free to go and look on our website for some inspiration. And I talk about how we use it to pin websites we've recently created, to pin blog posts and images on blog posts that we've recently written, to pin media coverage, and a whole lot more. So it might be more to that one than meets the eye than you realise too. Right, next up we've got good old Google+. So this is, of course, Google's attempt at having a go at the social network thing, and it introduced business pages too, and it's doing okay. I'll show you some of the stats. There's not as many people on it, there's not as much interaction as some of the other social networks, but look, this is Google and it does impact on your search rankings, so it's sort of worth having a look at for that very reason. And finally, Instagram. This one came out in 2010, and wouldn't you be pleased if you created it? $1 billion it sold for the end of last year. And again, on the surface, it can look like, really, what does that thing do? How can it sell for $1 billion? But I know Zoe's used the line before that he who controls the images or videos controls the internet. So kind of not surprising that Instagram was really attractive to people, because they sure do have a lot of images on there. Essentially, you can change the filter on a photo, so you can take a photo on your mobile, and that's how most people are using Instagram, and then share it. But it's also combined some of Twitter's features with the use of hashtags and likes and comments, and you can have friends on that network. So if your business has got a highly visual product, you know, jewelry, food, real estate, anything like that, that would do really well on either Pinterest or Instagram or both. And as for who's next, your guess is as good as mine. I mean, who would have thought that we needed new social networks, and that there was even, I guess, demand for them? And then Pinterest and Instagram and Google Plus popped up, and you know, certainly getting some high users. So pretty amazing, dynamic industry we operate in, but we love it. All right, so the numbers, how do the numbers stack up? If you're a numbers person, you'd be probably quite interested to know this. And we always pride ourselves on sharing the latest and greatest figures. So we've searched high, we've searched low from various sources, and this is our best attempt at giving you the latest figures. These come to February 2013. So you can see here Facebook is certainly the dominant one. Globally, they've got 1.06 billion, quite a few people. And in Australia, 11.6 million. So we've got about 22 million in our population here in Australia, so about half the population's on Facebook. So if you've been sitting on the fence and thinking, oh, I don't know about the social network thing, I just don't think people use it, I don't think my business people will be on there. If you're talking numbers, if half the population is on there, do you think anyone in that half of the population could possibly be some of your target market? And I would suggest that it's quite a high chance some of them are. YouTube, it's not the billion that Facebook's got, but certainly very high, 800 million users. You know, looking at these social networks, and some of you may have seen videos around like this, they're bigger than large countries, these social networks, in terms of users, which is pretty astounding. You know, we've never had, I guess, in history, companies that had this many users or consumers of their product, if you like. So it's fascinating stuff. In Australia, lots of YouTube users, almost as high as Facebook, you'll see there. LinkedIn, I should have updated this because they've just clocked 300 million they've announced, so it's already jumped up, which is a great result for them. I do feel like they've come into the public consciousness in recent times, particularly in Australia. When I lived in the UK, LinkedIn was very common. People used it. When I arrived to Australia in 2004, there weren't many people using it. And it's taken until about 2 years ago for it to come into public consciousness and people to realise it is quite a good, different way of connecting with businesses. And for those of you who find some of the fluffy stuff, shall we call it, a little bit not in line with business and corporate, and you like that straight down the line, give me the business stuff, you'll really like LinkedIn. Right, and Twitter, there's nearly as many Twitter users as there are LinkedIn users in Australia, and when I show you some statistics, you'll probably be surprised on that too. Instagram, 1.1 million in Australia, 100 million globally, and it goes down from there. Now, interestingly, on the Google Plus, a point I want to make is that if you have a Gmail account, lots of people around the world do, you've automatically been given a Google Plus account. So it's a little bit inflated, which is why we've done a bracket saying about 300 million of them are actually active. The other 200 million probably don't realise they've got a Google Plus account, probably not doing a whole lot with it. They are innovating quite quickly, though, I will say. I mean, they all are, but Google Plus are pretty determined, and they have some pretty incredible resources, and they have a pretty incredible track record, as we all know. So I do think watch the space and what they're doing. I've had the pleasure of hanging out with a representative from Google recently here in Australia. I'm actually off to Silicon Valley on Saturday and be going to the Google offices and Facebook offices over there as well. So I'm really curious to get the heads up on what they're doing. But yeah, they are doing amazing stuff. And one of the biggest features that I love on Google Plus is probably Hangouts. If you haven't checked it out, go ahead and have a look. So I've sort of alluded to some of this, but let's go in more depth now. if we're talking which networks would suit which situations and therefore perhaps your business, I'd like you to look at this and perhaps pick out a network that you're not on at the moment and that you think, wow, well, if that's the target, the users, perhaps I should be looking at it. And text chat that through. Tell me what that chart is telling you. So I won't go into it in detail. I'll leave you to, I guess, digest it. But here's I guess, a story from my experiences just last week. I think stories help help us learn. I had a woman in one of my LinkedIn training sessions, and she had been predominantly using Facebook, but she was a fashion designer, and her whole range was corporate wear. And whilst Facebook is a great medium, and she was actually doing a really good job on her Facebook business page of showing imagery and posting regularly and mixing it up, not being too salesy and bunches of stuff, I just thought, why are you not doing more on LinkedIn? Which is why she was at the LinkedIn training. And I think the lights really went on for her, because she realized here she is on Facebook trying to appeal to the masses, but really she just wants female, what was her strap line? For females who are going to the top and want to look good on the way, or something like that. You know, they're business people, so they're on LinkedIn. So she should have actually redirected her attentions to that, or certainly diversified her social media strategy. So are we getting some good responses in on that? Anthony, yes. Got Rachel saying I'm only Google Plus that I'm not on. Stephen saying found Twitter is definitely attractive to our male clients. Good point, Stephen. The males love Twitter because they consume sport on it. And you'll actually find a lot of the TV shows, have you noticed, and even news, including hashtags and user handles of Twitter people, you know, so when the reporter's name comes up, so does their Twitter handle, so that you can follow them there and then while you're watching the news on TV, and even send them a tweet, tell them what you think of that news, give them a tip for something else. So it is a pretty amazing network like that. All right, let's move on. I have to share with you some of the most common excuses and concerns we see people have about social media, because I really want to talk you through those, and I hope help you with them. And I'm wondering if any of these excuses sound like you. So if they do, send a text chat through, or raise your hand and say, oh my gosh, yeah, that's me, or even that's someone I know. Help let us know where you're at. So one of the big reasons, oh sorry, I'll just pause and clarify. Dave's asked us, and it's a good question, Dave, what does B2B mean? B2B means business to business, and B2C means business to consumer. So B2B, LinkedIn is a B2B network because it's businesses promoting to other businesses, whereas Facebook tends to be more of a business to consumer. These are average people, they may or may not be in business, but you have a product or service that they might be interested in. I hope that clarifies. Right, one of the big concerns we have from people that don't want to get into social media for business is because they don't want their old contacts to find them or people to know what they're up to. Now, I acknowledge this. Look, we're all different people in life, aren't we? We have broadcasters, which I would deem myself. I like sharing stuff. And then you have observers, which I would deem my partner. He doesn't want to tell people about what he's up to, but he really likes having a look around on Facebook. Now, if that is the case for you, I need to make you aware that under that little cog on Facebook, just to give you one example, is an area called account settings and privacy settings. Now, the thing about social media is some of their best features, they make really inconspicuous. So without someone pointing them out, how are you supposed to know they're even there? Now, if you do click on them though, don't think, oh my gosh, I'm going to switch off my entire account and muck it up. You can't break it, so don't be afraid. Pop in there and have a look at what's going on in those settings and customize it so that people you don't want to find you won't, or they won't see what you're up to. Zoe will go into this more in particular for Facebook in the future webinars, so I won't go on about it too much, but I do want to let you know that you can customize who sees each and every post, and indeed your profile in most networks to quite a degree, probably more so than you realize. Who here worries about the time? That they want to do social media, but they're really concerned, yeah, look at the hands going up. Well, here you go, guys. I'm going to let you in on some of our secret weapons here. If any of you follow us on social media, I personally get the comment a lot, oh my gosh, you're all over it, you must spend all day on it. Well, the secret is I actually don't. I use these tools. So here they are. Now, the first one at the top there is for Facebook. So did you know that for a status, you can actually post it, and as you've seen up there, I've stated what date and even what time you want it to go out. So technically, you could sit down of a specified day of the week, and I used to do the Sunday nights, and think about the week ahead. What events have you got on? What promotions? What things do you want to share? And write them all out and schedule them, and then forget about it. How cool is that? Upload the videos or photos you want to share at key points. So then it's mission accomplished. Now, if you want, that's if you just on Facebook, you have the ability to do that. Now, if you want to take things to another level, there's a tool called Hootsuite.com. That's HOOTSUITE.com, and Anthony will send that through via the text message right now for you. It looks something like this. You customize it to suit you. You can have a dark background or a light background, and you place in here what your message is, and you load in all your various social networks, and you can actually tick, I want this message to go out to my personal Twitter, my work Twitter, my this Facebook group, this LinkedIn page, and on it goes, this Google Plus page. So suddenly you don't have to go in and out of all of those networks just to do one message. But wait, it gets better. Not only can you post to multiple networks, you can also select when you want it to go out. So you could send out a message at certain times to certain networks and so on. You can also track and monitor what's being said about you, which we'll go into in the future slides. But suddenly you don't need to spend as much time. Literally, you might have to spend half an hour a week on doing your social media. So you might do a scheduling day or slot, and then apart from that, just a bit of a monitor in the morning and at night, perhaps 5 minutes might even do it. It will depend on how extensive your social networks are, you know, what sort of interaction you're getting, and you can work it out from there, but perhaps not as hard as you initially thought. So who thinks that that would be an absolute godsend and something they certainly need to look into? Raise your hands if you weren't aware that they did that, and you will be certainly looking into it. Fantastic, lots of hands. Well, we love it when hopefully you've had a light bulb moment. Feel free to text chat us as well about how you feel about that. Another one I hear is, I'm too old for this stuff. And I've got a mother-in-law like this. I often tell stories of my family on webinars. Helps make it real though, doesn't it? We're all people, we've all got families and so on. It's easy to say this and think that it'll go away and you don't need to participate in this stuff, but I don't know if you've noticed, but some of the TV ads and indeed calls to action are no longer featuring a phone number. They're no longer featuring a website. They're actually featuring a Facebook page and other social networks. So it's becoming more difficult for you to participate in general society if that's the way things are moving. For example, good old Kerri-Anne Kennerley was promoting a product, vitamins for females 50 plus, and I was watching this show. I think I was at home for some reason. I wouldn't normally watch it, and the call to action was Facebook, and I thought, isn't that interesting? You know, they're promoting this, and they know that there is a high percentage of females that are 50 plus on Facebook, the grannies. But look, I want to tell you about this woman here on the screen. Her name is Eva Woodrow. She's 101 and she's on Facebook and she loves it. She's a Sunshine Coast resident. There's a fantastic story in the Sunshine Coast Daily a while ago in their archive if you'd like to go and read it. She keeps in touch with her family, her friends. She keeps in touch with the news, and she thinks it's fabulous. She doesn't have to leave home, and there it is, she's connected. So some really positive aspects of social media apart from the negative stuff we hear, and I think it's important to highlight them sometimes. All right, another issue is that people don't understand it. So they just say, well, it's too hard for me, so I'll just get my teenager or someone who's young in their team to do it, because they're all over that stuff. They know how to do it. A word of warning on that approach: they can't always spell. Some of them can, but not all of them. They don't always have the business acumen to clearly articulate your business. So unless you're giving them strong direction and having involvement in the strategy and the policy and managing and monitoring what's being said, this is very dangerous territory to be in. So I meet a lot of people who've tried this, worked out it's really, really bad, didn't work out at all, and then had to actually roll up their sleeves and do it. So be aware of that. People sometimes don't want to do social media because they worry that someone might say something bad about them or their brand or their staff. But you know what? People are talking about you anyway. If you are not giving a good customer experience, they're out there talking, you know. And they say that in the offline world, people will say if they have a good experience, they'll tell one other person. If they have a bad experience, they're likely to tell 7 people. The thing about social media is whatever you're offering, good or bad, it is amplified. The bigger your networks are, the further this will travel. But what I like about that as a business owner is the feedback. If someone is not happy, if they have a suggestion, I'm now positioned in my business to accept that. And it's about accepting that feedback graciously and managing situations too. So I certainly think it is a good idea to do it and not to fear that someone might say something bad about you and not to do it. Another concern is that people think it doesn't achieve real business results, or does it? I mean, this is just one slide, and there's plenty you can find on the internet. But as you can see here, people are more likely to buy the product of someone they follow or are a fan of. And I think this is where social media has turned the business world on its head. Once upon a time, you used to see a newspaper ad, and if you liked what it was offering, maybe go on their website and or ring them up and see if that was for you. But you didn't, it felt a bit uncomfortable perhaps because you might be getting sold to from the get-go. As opposed to social media, you can just do a little passive follow or a little like and then just kind of, you know, passively monitor what this company's all about and what deals they have. And if you become engaged, that's when the real results start coming. And certainly you can get social media, you can get business results from social media. To outline just a few stories to get you excited, we ran an event and we got people to tweet at the event to show the power of Twitter. And one woman did a tweet there, and then she said, "Oh my God." And we said, "What?" And she said, "I've just made a sale on my website from that one tweet." And we went, "Yes, you can make sales from Twitter." So she was pretty impressed with that. Gosh, what are some of my other stories? Business results, it depends what you're going for, whether it's cold hard cash or whether it's, you know, I like getting media opportunities and speaking opportunities, and I get a bucket load of them from social media via LinkedIn and Twitter in particular. I get amazing business partnerships and opportunities from just striking up relationships on LinkedIn and working out what's a win-win and how we could do business together. So I do get really tangible results, and I encourage you to be more open-minded so you can too. And finally, another one I hear a lot is I'm not technical enough, I wouldn't be able to do it. My suggestion to you, if that's where you're at, hands up if that's how you feel, it's all just a bit overwhelming. Well, you're not alone, because people say this to us a lot, don't worry, is just to take baby steps. You know, I think too many people go, right, well, I've got to do social media, so they bang up every kind of page there is available, and then they go, now what do I do? And oh my gosh, it's so hard. And they haven't necessarily had training, and it's just freaking them out. So pick one network. I've given you some indications of which ones might suit you based on who your target market is, and we'll go into that more in a moment. And then do it really well. So don't bite off more than you can chew, is a big suggestion. So let's go through the social media success wheel. As I was just alluding to then, the biggest mistake I see people make is they skip straight to number 2. They don't have a strategy or a policy. They don't get any training. They just set up and then they say, oh, this thing doesn't work. It's a waste of time, load of rubbish, but they haven't followed all the steps. So this social media success wheel, 6 steps, I'm going to go through some of these now. We're not going to get through the whole thing in 1 hour, but we will be able to cover off some of the setup, some of the training, we're giving that to you now, and then some monitoring, measuring devices as well. And if you join future webinars with us, we'll continue to give this information. So step 1, this is really, really important, this slide, probably the most important slide of all, is to get really clear on what do you want. It's that simple, people. What do you want out of social media? Rather than get into it and then find out how it can work. There's a few possible objectives on the board. You may be able to come up with others. I'd like you to look at that slide and send me which one you think would be a great objective for you to focus on. And a suggestion is that you write this out and you put it on your computer screen on a post-it or on the notice board or somewhere prominent so you don't lose sight. Because what will often happen is you will log in, you'll go into social media and you'll start socializing. If you're on there for business, you're on there for business, and you need to be very strategic and focused and disciplined at achieving those results. Okay, great. Marie said she wants to generate awareness, increase traffic. That's a great thing you can do through social media. Keep sending those through and we'll keep monitoring them. We love interacting and hearing what you're going to settle on. By the way, I know I do go quite fast. You do have access to the recording of this post-event if you do want to revise this and pause and play at the points that you'd like to, possibly make notes and so on. Now, once you're clear on your objectives, this is what I'm trying to do, you need to define your target market. This is who I'm going to try and market to and achieve those results. So you need to think about right now, will you focus on a certain social network, and which one would it be because of who's on there? What gender is your target market likely to be? What is their educational level? Did they finish uni? Are they still at school? What are they doing? Where are they? Because, man, social media can give you the most amazing targeted marketing. I mean, did you know on Facebook, for example, you can do a post and you can only let people on your business page who are located in, let's say, Melbourne, see that post. I did some research recently for an event in the Emerald region, and they asked me to find out how many people in specific areas around that region were on Facebook. And I actually didn't think it would be possible. But when I looked into it, yes, all these tiny little places, I could see that 800 of this place was on Facebook and 1,400 of this one, and that formed really great research for us to develop our social media strategy with. So I encourage you to take a look at that too. Also, what are their problems? This is the best question to ask yourself when you're trying to develop any kind of marketing strategy, be it social media or others. Think about what are these people that you're thinking about's problems, and how can your product or service solve that? And your marketing can communicate that. There's a saying, give them the headache, then sell them the pill. That's good marketing. So I hope that's something for you to think about too. Next up, define what success will look like. Okay, we know what we're trying to do, we know who we're going for. What will we be happy with? So sometimes it can feel like on social media not a lot's happening, but actually if you're monitoring your number of likers or followers for particular social networks, you can see it's an upwards curve. So although sales might not be happening yet or inquiries, we've got a bigger audience now, and so we have a higher chance in the future of having a result, and it can feel like you're getting somewhere. What about the level of engagement? That as a benchmark is something that we do place a lot of emphasis on, because in a way, there's not a lot of point having thousands of likers if none of them ever comment, watch a post, interact in any way. So engagement is deemed people who share your content you're publishing on social media, who comment on that, or who like that. And just to throw you some, I guess, benchmarks on Facebook, for instance, if you're achieving sort of 4 to 5%, that's really good, that's acceptable. If you're getting up to 10% engagement, so let's say you have 2,000 likes and 200 people are liking, sharing, commenting, and you can see that because it will say talking about in the section right next to how many followers you have, then you're doing really, really well. So that's a way of patting yourself on the back. If you have to report to boards or management or accountant or marketing team, these are the sorts of things you can ask for or share. If you've got a business place that you want people to know is there and to frequent, then check-ins to your place is a good way to measure it. I'll show you some case studies soon of how people are using that. Maybe video views. If video is the way you're going to be promoting it, maybe it's sales. You want that cold hard cash, and that's absolutely fine because you're in business after all. So there's a few ideas. And then how will you measure success? So there's a number of different ways you can obtain statistics to see how these things are going. Really easy one is Facebook Insights, which Zoe will share more about in next week. So that's a free statistical system that comes inbuilt with any given Facebook page, and you can check how things are performing on that. You can manually grade, so you can log into different accounts and make a note of those, and you can, I guess, compare them to competitors as well. You know, I've got 500 likes, my competitor's got 1,000, right, my goal in the next 6 months is to get 1,000 and get up there with them. URL shorteners, there's things like bit.ly. If you use Owly, they will make a shortener. Now, those sorts of URL shorteners, and you can always Google this if you want more information, will allow you to track how many people are clicking on the link that you've inserted in the social media. Now, generally in social media updates, you don't just say, here's this thing. You've got to say, and this is what I want you to do. And you do that through including a link. It's like a headline with a link. And if you have a URL shortener, not only are you giving them a link and hopefully they're coming over to your website and taking an action, you can actually track how many people clicked on it, so it becomes great insights as well. Google Analytics, that's a free statistical software that Google offers that I recommend everyone in business that has a website turns on. They have a whole section on social where you can see what percentage of people visited your site via LinkedIn, Facebook, any of the social channels you're on, how many of those people were on mobile, and so on. And look, there's all sorts of other tools, so you could look up, I guess, on Google, social media measurement tools, and you'll probably turn up this one, tweet.grader.com. That gives your Twitter account a score out of 100, and it gives you some tips on what you could be doing to improve it. So that's just a few ideas. Who got some ideas off that and is going to commit to measuring success? It's pretty important. So pop your hand up if that is you. Awesome. Because if you don't know how you're tracking, how do you know what to change and what to do better? It really is a very important part of success. In defining your social media strategy, the other thing you really need to give some serious thought to is what resources will be required. Because yes, social media is essentially free. However, your time has a cost on it. How much of your time are you prepared to give up to put onto social media? I've already alluded to the fact that there's tools, but you might have to put in some time initially. You might have to do a content strategy. You might have to put in some time in training to get up to speed to really be able to do justice to this. So be realistic about that. And the other thing is your inclination. You know, if the thought of logging on and doing the social media stuff does not jazz you at all, then don't do it. I'm a massive believer of that in business. So if you, you know, I'm not that keen on accounts. I hate it. I hate admin and filing and all that stuff. So I get other people to do that, and I'm more than happy to pay that. I still take an active interest. I still, you know, manage them and monitor what's going on. And that's all I need to do, but I focus on the stuff I do have an inclination towards. And for me, I do like marketing, so that's what I focus on. So think about that. Is there another team member who you could involve and, you know, work collaboratively? Because you don't want to, you know, go on a holiday and all the social media activity and momentum you've gained is lost. And then on the team member, do you need to hire someone? Could you subcontract it out? There's certainly many individual consultants and companies that offer that service, and or there's VAs as well, virtual assistants, people who do this online from often offshore. And if you're going to get into those later options, you probably need to allocate a budget in your next financial year. So now's probably a good time to be thinking about this. If you've taken those 5 steps, you're well on your way to creating a social media strategy, and I encourage you to document it as well. And if you actually look at this recording of this webinar again, and with the workbook as well, which I'll talk about more at the end, you will get the most out of this program. And there's some good suggestions in there on strategy too. Now, in terms of policy, I've already said one of the most common reasons why we have issues is when people don't define their social media policy. So go through the who, what, when, where, and how. I've just noted the time there, so I'm going to whiz through this particular slide because I want to make sure there's time for questions. But who's going to be allowed to post, what if they're away, when, where, via something or not, and how. So if you go through that, that will help define your social media policy, which is certainly an important aspect of participating in social media too. In addition, for social media policy, you need to look at how you can monitor. So you'll see on the screen there's 2 options. You've got free solutions, feel free to write some of these down, and there's paid solutions. The ones I tend to use are a combination of Google Alerts, Facebook Insights, and Hootsuite. I'm a cheapskate. I use the free stuff for myself, but for some clients we do use the paid versions, and as they do require that deeper level of reporting or insight. And there's new sorts of tools coming online all the time. Actually, I do pay for Hootsuite, the paid version, I must point out, because it's very, very good. So when you saw Hootsuite slide deck before, you noticed that I was monitoring different topics, and these were some of the ones I was monitoring: our business name, my name, staff names, product names. You want to know who's saying what about you. So here's a point: even if you don't actually do social media yourself, you should set up these monitoring devices to just see what conversation is going on about your business. Is it good, bad, or otherwise? This is great intelligence, you know. See what your competitors are publishing. Have they just launched a new product? Have they got new staff? What are they doing? Industry hangouts. Is there some major legislative change that's going to be a game changer for your industry? Be aware of that stuff as it happens rather than being on the back foot. Social media can help you do that. And here's a few tips to getting started in the order we recommend it. With all of that said and done, we've got strategy, we've got a policy. Then we encourage you to go and look at usernames. So there's a website called namecheck.com. You can pop in any proposed username and see if they're available across multiple networks. Because in a way, it's not ideal to have, I don't know, Creative Collective in one and the Creative Collective in another. That's not so bad, but you want to keep it as consistent as possible. And I tell you what, on usernames, they're becoming more and more like domain names, where there's not so many good ones left and you have to become quite creative. I know when we are branding startup companies, which we do a fair bit of, we have to look at a number of factors, including is the trademark available, is the domain name available, is the business registration available, and is the username available in social networks. And only if all of those things are stacking up do we usually proceed. Number two, a way to get started is to get social apps on your mobile. So apps are free if you're using an iPhone. You go onto iTunes and download the different apps. And on Android, there's also an app store. And you just grab, you know, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, whichever ones you're looking to use. A lot of the systems I've just introduced you to, the Hootsuite and the like, they actually have apps as well. Pinterest certainly does. So suddenly this is not a thing you have to sit down on the computer to do, which is maybe the last thing you feel like doing after a long day at work. You can actually do on the fly. You know, you can do it sitting at the hairdressers. You can do it standing in the queue at the supermarket. You can do it sitting in the waiting room at the doctor's. So you can find bites of time, and it's quite enjoyable, I find. Next up, you should invite people you know. That's the best place to get started. You all have friends, you all have colleagues, you all have clients. Get them connected and then leverage and grow from there. Make new friends and connections. Zoe will take you through how to do that on Facebook in the coming weeks. Tune in to conversations first. I'd say listen first and speak second, which is why they're in that order, 6 and 7. And then finally, do these status updates, but always having in mind your objectives and target market. There really isn't a lot of point in just putting out noise, just stuff, because you're doing social media. It should be very strategic. So, you know, our team is constantly talking on social networks about trends and technology and social media and online and entrepreneurs and startups. That stuff we're interested in, that stuff we know our target market is interested in, and that's all we talk about. So I know for a while there the team were finding some funnies that might have been good and relevant on their personal networks, and that they were proposing go out on our professional networks, but I had to rein them in and say, no, there's no relevance here. If there are funnies about internet and so on, sure, but not the other stuff. I hope that gives you some ideas. Okay, second to last slide, and then we'll open it up for questions. Staying safe. This is a really important aspect and maybe something that's holding you back. Who to accept and who not to. You know, if someone asks you to be your friend on Facebook or connect with you on LinkedIn and you don't want to, you don't have to. And if this helps you know, they don't get an email or a notification saying, ha ha, Yvette doesn't want to be your friend. So don't worry about that. I have written a blog post which you might find useful on our company blog. If you go onto that and search on the search function, search accepting friends, social networks, something like that. And on there I talk about what my personal policy is for social networks. For instance, on LinkedIn, I'll only connect to you if there is an obvious or potential business synergy and you also qualify who you are and how we know each other. If you don't do that, then I won't accept you. It's unlikely. For instance, if you're an old friend of mine from New Zealand where I grew up, I'm likely to say, come on over to Facebook, happy to connect there. On that same post, I give you some polite decline requests. So where it's a bit awkward and you don't know how to say no thanks, I give you those. And on those, I also say I can't remember connecting, can you remind me? So that encourages them to provide a bit more information. Staying safe, privacy and accounts, it should say account settings, it's a typo, I apologise, is very important. You need to amend those so that you can remain safe. Don't feature your birth date, for instance, the full year. If you don't want people to know who your partner is, you can change that on Facebook. LinkedIn, you know, my contacts are valuable. I don't really like people seeing and knowing who all my LinkedIn contacts are, so I actually change the settings so that you can't see them. They're just a few ideas of reasons you might want to change them. But identity theft as well is on the rise, unfortunately, and making sure you're diligent with this stuff is very important. Limit the amount of personal information you post. So, for instance, on Facebook, I'm very strict of who I let in there. I do have to have met you and we have to know each other fairly well, because I do post stuff about my children and what I get up to on the weekend and so on. But don't post anything you don't want going public. It's a public forum, so be very wary of that. Remember too that what goes online stays online. You might argue, well, I could always remove it and it's not there anymore. The fact is, it gets indexed and people take screenshots and it could get held up in a court of law. I think we've only tipped the iceberg, hit the tip of the iceberg in regards to the number of social media legal cases there will be for defamation and bunches of other stuff. So be aware of that and be mindful, and please, please teach your children to also be aware of their future employability. Zoe uses a great adage on this regard, which is never post under the influence of anything, never post under emotion, so if you're angry, upset, etc., and never post something that you wouldn't want your grandmother to see. If you keep those things in mind, I think you'll keep it above board. Passwords and changing them often is key, and your computer in general, and being wary of third-party apps. You know, yes, there's games on Facebook and things, and often companies will say, you know, connect to here and let us do notifications. You can do all that, but be mindful of who you are allowing to do that kind of stuff and reduce the chance of problems. With all that said and done, the reason I've got a guy driving a car is because, here's an analogy for you. Social media is like driving a car. You don't not do it because there's a risk of something going wrong. When there's a car, you could have an accident, sure, but do you not drive a car because of the chance of having an accident? No way, there's too many benefits, and there is a lot of benefits on social media too. So just do it with precaution, be aware, just like you are when you're driving, and you'll minimise those risks. So in summary, get super clear on your social media strategy. We've given you lots of tips on that. Pick the one social network you think best suits you in line with your target market and objectives, and get good on that first. Focus, be disciplined. Get training. You might need more training than today, but I hope this has given you a good starting point. Connect with someone who will keep you in the loop. Use social media tools to work smarter, not harder. Aim for engagement, and then, of course, monitor and measure your results using some of the mechanisms we've shared with you today. I hope you found some great tips there. And as I've referred to, you should have, upon registering, received an email with a link to the workbook. We can distribute that again if you need it, which has, you know, further information to make sure that you're getting the most out of the session. So at that point, questions. Anthony, do we have anyone queued up for questions? Okay, so Stephen's saying, for the Q&A session, can you comment on Yelp? Does the benefit outweigh the risk? So I'm aware of Yelp. I'm aware it's huge in America. For those of you who don't know it, it's a location-based marketing network. So on it, people list businesses, again, that they want to be found and people to frequent. So restaurants and accommodation and things like that are pretty heavy on there. And there's also a review system. There is a Yelp team here in Australia, and they are actively trying to grow the network. I'm not aware of too many risks. I guess what you may be getting at, but I'm just reading between the lines, is that people could write a bad review. But I think if you set up monitoring so that if anywhere, using Google Alerts, anywhere if someone posts something about your business, you get alerted, then you can always respond. And it's about the way you respond and doing that in a respectful, courteous, and timely manner as well. So I hope that answers your question. What's the difference of a profile page and a business page on Facebook? Karina, I'd love to answer that question, and I can, but you know what? Next week, Facebook webinar, same time, same place, just next Wednesday, we cover that in detail. So if I can encourage you to defer that question over to then, you'll get visuals and everything, and Zoe will take you through that in detail. Training, can you, oh, here's another one. Can you tell me your experience and the value of online surveys? I think online surveys are fantastic. There's a time and a place for them. It's about making them achievable. Look, one easy one, if you just got one burning question, is of course to do a poll rather than a full-blown survey, which you can run polls on both LinkedIn and Facebook. They have that functionality built in, and it's nice to mix up the marketing message. In terms of full-blown surveys, look, you can expect a 20 to 30% response rate of however many people you're asking. Incentives help, so offering them, they'll go in the draw to win something, or you'll give everyone something for filling it in. But very important, I think a lot of people make the mistake of just giving their customers what they think they need, because they know they're the business owner, which is crazy. They should be asking the customers and doing more surveying and gathering feedback. So yeah, I think it's a good idea. Leanne has been answered. Just another, because I think there's a few questions on that. This webinar recording will be made available to you, so you have not missed out on anything. If you found I've gone too fast or you've logged in late or whatever the case may be, don't worry, they're coming. Wendy has, oh, here we go. Jackie, if using Facebook, our worry is that too many posts is not good. What are the average posts per week, and when? Next week I'll be away. Okay, Jackie, this varies per business, but we would recommend probably at least one a day. And sometimes that's enough. 1 to 2 a day is a general benchmark. There's some exceptions where we push it up to 3 for some businesses if there's a real strategy behind it, but 1 to 2 a day is optimal. And if you're finding you're not getting engagement on Facebook, this is direct from the mouth of Nick Bowditch, who's the Australian Small Business Manager for Facebook. You're not being engaging, so change what you're posting. Should small businesses be paying attention to Google+? Why do you think it's taking such a slow uptake in Australia? Look, this is all opinion-based, Jeffrey, and thanks for asking the question and for getting on today. I think people haven't got their heads around other social networks yet, and I think Google's timing wasn't ideal. So while they're busy off, getting their heads around LinkedIn and Twitter and all this, then they've popped up and said, how about us too? And some people have gone, oh no, it's all too much. I mean, I know we offered a Google Plus training session and we just didn't get the interest. And I said to the girls, I think we're just too early to market. I don't think people are ready for it. Personally, as a user experience, I don't find it as intuitive or as enjoyable. However, having hung out with Kia from Google, she showed me some stuff it does that made me sit up and take notice. And with she also alluded to some, further rollouts. And I was very impressed, thinking that, yeah, I'm really happy where it's going, and I will definitely keep an eye on it. Should small businesses be on it? Well, you know what? They used to just be on Google Maps, right? A lot of businesses to get a chance of ranking on Google's front page. Then when Google Plus changed it to Google Places, it's now called Google Plus Local. So actually, and they've wrapped it all into one. So your Google Places piece on Google is now actually part of your Google Plus account. So you need to revisit it, because I found that our Google Places listing did not come across well. Pictures were missing, information was missing. And Google responds if you give it more information, so do have a look at it. I think more location-based businesses, so tourism, retail sector, all of that sort of area, and others who want their customers to know who they are, where they are, and to come and visit them, should be looking at Google Plus over other businesses, because there's some real benefits there. I hope that answers your question. Sue says, my connection dropped out. Any tips on increasing engagement? I have tried questions. Okay, yep, questions are good on engagement. Photos and videos increase the likelihood of your post being seen and engaged with 40%. So there's another throwaway comment. Zoe will give more tips and things on ways to engage in future weeks. And even if you can't get on that session, I encourage you to register so we can then supply the recording as well. John, same comment applies to LinkedIn groups. Read Bowditch's comment on not being engaging. Not sure what you're asking there, but I guess you're saying if you're not getting responses to your comments in groups, one, there's a possibility the groups are not that active, or that, yes, you're not being engaging is also a possibility. Sandy says, if you don't have a large network already in place, where do you go to next if you're already on Facebook and have targeted your market but you only have a minimal amount of likes? So on this, as I said, you actually, it's kind of better to have less likes and more engagement. You know, I've seen very successful businesses have 100 likes but such a high level of engagement. You know, we had one off the charts the other day. It's a Kiwis living in Queensland group I happen to belong to, and we have about 500 likes, but we had about 15,000 people talking about us because there was such a high level of engagement, which has been a real eye-opener to me to realise how many Kiwis are here who are loving that information. So don't always focus on likes is my first point. My second point is you've got to mix up the ways you're marketing it. So I'd like to suggest to you that you include your social networks in all marketing collateral. So email signature, business cards, flyers, etc. I'd like you to encourage cross-pollination. So if you're on one social network, say LinkedIn, tell them you've got a Facebook page and to pop on over. Include it on documents. There's lots of ways you can grow it. I think Zoe will share some really great ideas of growing, particularly your number of likes and community on Facebook next week as well. Aroha says, is the session available to share with others or only who have participated today? So what happens, we supply the recording of the session to Queensland Government. They in turn load it up to their Business QLD Gov YouTube account, and I recommend you all go and subscribe to that. And then the moment they post those, you'll get notified, and you can certainly share these links with other businesses, and we'd love you to. All right, we've done pretty well. 1:32, answered a bunch of questions, and I think we're there, so fabulous. Oh, sorry, I'll just go back to that slide. Sorry, I accidentally clicked off. I've done it again. Oh dear. Bear with me. Slideshow. Here we go. Thank you, I wanted to say, for joining us. But before you log off, we need your feedback. Anthony is right now sending through a link to an online survey. Now, as part of our requirement for this contract, we need to report back on what people thought of the webinar. Did you get what you were looking for? Did you learn something? Is there something you're going to do with that information? Please pop on over. It'll only take you a minute to do. We'd really, really appreciate it. Helps us deliver better sessions in the future by taking on board your feedback, which we always listen to and always look to bring into future sessions. So I hope you've enjoyed it today. I certainly have. Thank you to Anthony for his great facilitating. He's been busy answering a lot of questions there. Now the workbook has been distributed, and I believe they're also available on the business website. If anyone hasn't got one, do let us know and we can respond via email. So email us at admin@thecreativecollective.com.au and we'll respond with a link to download the workbook so you can be diligent and make the most of the session. Thanks so much. Don't forget to get online next week and enjoy Zoe Wyatt. She is amazing, trust me. And she is on Wednesday, the 8th of May at 12:30 p.m. online. See you there.